In the last of our Onshape LUX tutorials, we're going to look at how to create a working drawing or an engineering drawing from a part, although you can do the same from an assembly. This is really useful because you can use it as a template, you can use it as information for other people to manufacture components, and it's part of what you need as your IB internal assessed unit as well. You need to have a set of engineering drawings to manufacture the components that you're making. So we're going to open up the part we're going to draw. Let's go with the lower torso. So just double clicked on that to open up, and here it is in the design window. So if I come down here, click on the plus sign, I can pick the option to create a drawing. It comes up with some existing templates, but they don't always necessarily tie in to what we want to do. So we're going to go with a custom template. We're going to make sure we've got ISO, or International Standards Organization, selected. We're going to be working in English because we need to do that for our IB. And for this part, we're going to change the size to A3. When it comes to you working on your IA, you might want to be working in A4 all the time, A4 portrait, because that's the format of your project work, your coursework that you have to hand in. We're going to go for millimeters, and the decimal separator is going to be a period. Some countries use a comma. What we are going to do is we're going to change the projection to third angle. This is now the preferred option through most of the world. And we're not going to worry about views, and we're not going to worry about this over here. You could turn off the border if you wanted to, if this is going into your portfolio and you needed a little more drawing space. So click on OK, and it will load up a drawing tab. So if we look down the bottom, we can see that we've got a part studio with a part in, we've got an assembly, you can have assemblies associated with part studios, and we've got our drawing, which is here. So you can see some of the information's been filled in. So it's got my name on here, so it knows I've drawn it. It's got today's date, and it's got the correct symbol for the third angle projection. And we can add in titles and things later if we want. So to add a part, I'm going to click on the part that I want, and automatically it will bring over different views, which after a short delay it will put a preview of what it's going to look like in there. So I can left click to place that. And because in an orthographic drawing the view should line up, once I've placed the first view, I can move over to the right, click, and it will put another view. And if I want to add additional views, like a top view, then I can click on this view and then move to the correct position, and it will put in the correct view for that. So at the moment, we didn't change the scale, so we're working at a scale of 1 to 1. So this part we could have probably gotten away with drawing it on a piece of A4 paper and printing it off on A4. It would depend on what our purpose is for that. So for example, with this particular component on a larger drawing, we could fit lots of dimensions on there. If we were just going to create this so that we could cut these shapes out, printing it out at a 1-to-1 scale, to use as a template to perhaps stick on a foam block so that we can cut the foam block to size, then we could get away with putting that on an A4 and putting the views as close to each other as possible. So let's start off by adding some dimensions. So we can use the dimension tool, and normally with drawings, if you can, one of the things that you want to try and incorporate are the overall dimensions. So let's give it an overall height. And then we can give it an overall width for the front, and from the side view we can give it an overall width of the side as well. Other things that might be important are positions of holes and sizes of holes. It's quite important to try and make sure that the lines don't overlap each other and that come away from part. So the lines that drop down from the edge of the part that are thinner than the lines of the part are called lead lines, and the arrowed lines are dimensioned lines. And you'll see that the ISO International Standards Organization setting is the dimension goes above the center of the dimension line. It's not sort of a break in the dimension line with it written in the middle. So we might also want to dimension the diameter of that hole, and we would want to put in the vertical height as well. Now sometimes that can look a little bit clumsy if we're trying to fit a number in a small gap, so we can always pull down. And if we're dimensioning something, we often use a datum edge that we might put all of our dimensions in. So for example, if we're dimensioning the different heights here, we would do it in this way, and then our center of our circle in. Now we don't need to dimension the overall height because we've got that dimension over here, but what we probably ought to do is dimension that radius, and we ought to dimension that radius. Now this is where sometimes we have to break the rules. If we were going to dimension this width as we go up, you can see that it crosses over these lead lines. We could possibly move those so that they were inside there, and that didn't happen. Now, we don't need to dimension the length of that line. We don't need to dimension the angle of that line. The reason being is that we could work that out. We know the overall distance here. We know the distance here. So we effectively know the length of that line, and we know the distance between the two. So we could work that out with a little bit of trigonometry. Or we could just sort of manufacture it. But we could have that angle in if we wanted to. So that's it. That's a very basic introduction to how to create engineering drawings on Onshape. There are lots of other features, but we will explore those at a later date as we increase our knowledge with the software and as the sort of demands of what we're doing dictate it. Otherwise, we could end up giving you too much information and you getting a bit overwhelmed by it. So how to create the different views, how to add on dimensions, that's all you need for the moment.